If you're a green card holder or someone planning to travel to the United States, there's a powerful headline spreading fear across the internet right now. People are saying green card holders are suddenly banned from traveling. Others claim there's a 90-day freeze on immigration. And many families are panicking, canceling trips, and worrying they could be denied re-entry at the airport. But here's the truth you need to hear right away. Most of what you're seeing online is wrong, incomplete, or dangerously misleading. The new White House immigration alert has created real changes, but it has also created massive confusion. And today, I'm going to separate fact from rumor. So, let me ask you a few important questions. Are green card holders actually prohibited from leaving the US? If you travel abroad, could you be blocked from coming back? Does the new policy really halt green card processing for 90 days? And who is truly affected by these new restrictions? In the next few minutes, you're going to get clear, verified answers directly from official government sources. Not opinions, not social media posts, not guesses, just the real facts explained in plain, simple language. By the end of this video, you will know exactly whether you are safe to travel, whether your immigration case is at risk, and what steps you should take right now to protect yourself and your family. Here is the most important headline before we go any further. Green card holders are not banned from travel. I'm going to explain why, who the restrictions really apply to, and what the 90-day rule actually means. Stay with me because this information could directly affect your future in the United States. Hi, I'm Timothy, and welcome to the channel where we break down complex U.S. immigration news into clear, reliable information you can actually understand and use. I know how stressful and emotional immigration policy changes can feel, especially when headlines move faster than the facts. That's why in this video, I'm going to walk you through everything step by step. We'll look at what the White House truly announced, what the Department of Homeland Security and USCIS have officially confirmed, and what these updates mean for real people like you. Whether you already have a green card, you're waiting for one, or you're trying to figure out how these new rules affect a family member, this video is designed to give you calm, practical clarity. No politics, no exaggeration, just straightforward explanations. And most importantly, I'll tell you exactly what actions you should take based on your personal situation. Let's get into the facts. Let's start with the core announcement that triggered all this confusion. On December 16, 2025, the White House issued a new presidential proclamation that expanded existing travel restrictions for certain foreign nationals. This proclamation officially took effect at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time on January 1st, 2026. The language of the order is focused on what the government calls national security concerns, and it places new limits on visa issuance and entry into the United States for nationals of specific countries. Now, this is where the details really matter. The proclamation does not create a universal immigration ban. It does not stop all immigration, and it absolutely does not apply to every immigrant category. Instead, it targets two main groups. The first group includes 19 countries that face full entry restrictions, meaning new immigrant and non-immigrant visas from those nations are suspended. The second group includes 20 additional countries that face partial restrictions, mostly affecting tourist, student, and exchange visas. In total, 39 countries are impacted in some way. But here's the critical point many people are missing. These restrictions apply primarily to people who were outside the United States on January 1st, 2026, and who did not already hold a valid U.S. visa on that date. In other words, the policy is aimed at new entries and new visa applicants, not people who are already lawful residents. Understanding that distinction changes everything. Now let's talk about who is actually affected in real practical terms. The travel restrictions are not based on race, religion, or immigration status alone. They are based on nationality and timing. To fall under the ban, a person must meet three conditions. First, they must be a national of one of the restricted countries. Second, they must have been physically outside the United States when the proclamation went into effect. And third, they must not have had a valid U.S. visa before January 1st, 2026. If even one of those conditions is not met, the ban generally does not apply. For example, if someone from a restricted country already had a valid visa before the effective date, that visa remains valid. It was not automatically canceled, it was not revoked, and it can still be used for travel to the United States. This is a major point that has been completely misunderstood online. Many posts and videos have suggested that existing visas were wiped out overnight. That is simply not true. The policy is forward-looking. It affects new visa issuance, not visas that were already legally granted. This means thousands of people can continue to travel exactly as they were before, even if their country of nationality is on the list. And that brings us to the most important exemption of all, the one that matters to millions of viewers watching right now. Let's address the question that matters more than anything else for so many families. Are green card holders affected by this travel ban? The clear, verified answer is no. If you are a lawful permanent resident of the United States, meaning you hold a valid green card, you are explicitly exempt from these restrictions. That is not an opinion. That is written directly into the official language of the proclamation and confirmed by multiple government agencies and legal experts. So, let me say it as clearly as possible. If you already have a green card, you can still leave the United States, you can still travel abroad, and you can still return home to America even if you are originally from one of the 39 restricted countries. Your legal status as a permanent resident protects you. This is one of the strongest protections built into U.S. immigration law. A green card is not just a visa, it is proof of permanent residence, and that status cannot be taken away simply because of this new policy. Unfortunately, many people confuse the phrase travel restrictions with travel ban for everyone, and that misunderstanding caused unnecessary panic. Airports did not suddenly close their doors to green card holders. Airlines are not refusing to board lawful permanent residents, and Customs and Border Protection is not denying re-entry to people with valid green cards just because of this proclamation. However, there is another part of this policy that created real concern, and that is where the 90-day confusion began. While current green card holders are safe to travel, there is a separate issue affecting people who are still in the process of applying for immigration benefits. Around the same time the travel proclamation was issued, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services announced that it would temporarily pause the review of certain pending applications from nationals of 19 specific countries. This pause affects applications for green cards, citizenship, and asylum from those countries. And this is the policy change that many people misunderstood. A pause in processing is not the same thing as a travel ban. It does not cancel existing green cards. It does not block current residents from moving freely. It simply means that USCIS will take additional time to review certain cases more carefully before making final decisions. The agency stated that these applications would undergo enhanced security screening and potentially new interviews. For applicants, this is frustrating and stressful, but it is very important to understand what it does not mean. It does not automatically deny your case. It does not remove you from the United States, and it does not take away any status you already have. It only affects people who are still waiting for approval, not people who have already been approved. Unfortunately, social media posts mix these two completely different policies together. And suddenly rumors exploded claiming that green card travel was frozen for 90 days. That claim is simply false. The 90-day reference relates to internal government review procedures, not to your ability to travel or live in the United States as a lawful permanent resident. And in just a moment, I'll break down exactly what that 90-day timeline really refers to, so there is no confusion left at all. Before we go deeper, let me pause for a quick moment to make sure this information reaches the people who need it most. If this explanation is helping you understand what's really going on, take just 1 second to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Immigration rules change fast, and my goal is to keep you updated with accurate, verified facts instead of rumors. Now, let's continue with something every traveler needs to know. Because even though green card holders are not banned from travel, there is a new requirement that does affect almost everyone who is not a U.S. citizen. Starting at the end of December 2025, new biometric screening procedures went into effect at U.S. borders and airports. This means that when non-citizens enter or leave the United States, Customs and Border Protection officers now collect additional biometric information, such as fingerprints, photographs, and digital identity verification. And yes, this includes lawful permanent residents. Many people heard about these new procedures and assumed they were part of the travel ban. They are not. This is a separate security measure that applies broadly to millions of travelers from all countries, not just those on the restricted list. The purpose is to modernize border security systems and improve identity verification. So, if you travel as a green card holder and you notice more screening or slightly longer processing times at the airport, that is normal under the new rules. It does not mean you are in trouble. It does not mean your status is at risk. It simply means the government is using updated technology to confirm who is entering and leaving the country. Understanding that difference is important so you don't mistake routine procedures for something more serious. Now let's slow everything down and look at what all of this means for real people in different situations. If you are a current green card holder, the message is straightforward. You can continue to live your life normally. You can travel internationally. You can return to the United States just as you always have. The only things you need to be careful about are the same rules that have always applied. Make sure your green card is valid and not expired. If it is close to expiring, renew it as soon as possible. Carry proper documentation when you travel, especially proof that the United States is your permanent home, such as employment records, tax filings, or evidence of family ties. And be prepared for normal questions from border officers, particularly if you have spent long periods outside the country. None of that is new and none of it is caused by the travel proclamation. Now, if you are someone who has applied for a green card but has not received it yet, your situation may be different. If you are from one of the countries affected by the USCIS processing pause, your application might experience delays. That can be frustrating, but it is very important not to panic. A delayed case is not a denied case. USCIS is reviewing these applications more carefully, and that takes time. The best thing you can do is monitor your case status, respond quickly to any requests for evidence, and if possible, speak with a qualified immigration attorney about your options. Finally, if you are outside the United States and hoping to obtain a new visa from one of the restricted countries, the reality is more difficult. New visa issuance is largely suspended for now, and travel plans may need to be reconsidered. But even in those cases, there are exceptions and strategies that might still apply, especially for dual nationals or people who qualify for special waivers. The key is to understand exactly which category you fall into because each group is treated very differently under the new rules. Another important point that many people overlook is the role of dual nationality in these new restrictions. If you happen to hold citizenship from more than one country, you may have options that others do not. The travel proclamation is based on the passport you use to enter the United States, not necessarily on your country of birth. So, for example, if someone is originally from a restricted country, but also holds citizenship from an unrestricted nation, that person may be able to travel using the unrestricted passport and avoid the ban entirely. This has already become a practical solution for many families with mixed immigration backgrounds. However, it must be done correctly. Immigration officers look carefully at travel history, documentation, and intent. Simply carrying two passports does not automatically solve every problem. The key is to make sure you are entering the United States under a nationality that is not subject to the restrictions. For some people, this will be a lifeline that allows them to continue studying, working, or visiting family in America. For others, it may require careful planning with an immigration professional to ensure there are no legal complications. Beyond dual nationals, the proclamation also lists several other categories of people who are exempt from the restrictions. Certain diplomats and government officials are excluded, as well as specific groups like athletes and support staff participating in major international events such as the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Olympics. There are also protections for some special immigrant visa holders, particularly individuals who worked with the U.S. government or who face persecution in their home countries. These exemptions show that even within a strict policy, there are still important exceptions built into the system. The challenge is knowing whether you personally qualify for one of them. There is also a formal waiver process written into the proclamation, although it is important to be realistic about how difficult that process can be. The order allows the Secretary of State to grant individual waivers in cases where allowing a person to enter the United States would serve a national interest or prevent significant hardship. On paper, this sounds encouraging. In practice, these waivers are expected to be rare and are decided on a case-by-case basis. That means there is no automatic right to a waiver, and approval is far from guaranteed. Still, for some families, this may be the only possible path forward, especially in urgent humanitarian situations. If you believe you might qualify for a waiver, the smartest step is to gather strong documentation and seek professional legal advice before making any travel plans. Now, all of this information brings us to a crucial question that many viewers have been asking. Where exactly should you go to find reliable, up-to-date information about these policies? In times like this, rumors spread faster than facts, and bad information can lead to very costly mistakes. The only sources you should truly rely on are official government websites and trusted legal authorities. The White House website publishes the full text of presidential proclamations. The Department of State provides updates on visa policies and travel restrictions. USCIS posts official guidance about application processing and procedural changes in customs and border protection, explains the real rules for entering the United States at ports of entry. These are the places where accurate information lives. Social media posts, forwarded messages, and unverified videos should never be the basis for life-changing immigration decisions. The more serious the situation, the more important it is to check facts directly from the source. To truly understand why these policies are happening, it helps to look briefly at the legal foundation behind them. Under U.S. immigration law, the president has broad authority to restrict the entry of foreign nationals when the government believes their admission could be harmful to national interests. This authority comes from a section of the Immigration and Nationality Act, known as 212F. It allows the executive branch to suspend or limit entry for specific groups of people if security concerns are identified. This power has been used by multiple administrations over many years, and similar travel restrictions have existed in different forms in the past. In fact, earlier versions of travel bans were challenged in court and eventually reviewed by the U.S. Supreme Court, which confirmed that the president does have the legal ability to issue these kinds of orders. That does not mean the policies are permanent. The current proclamation specifically states that the government will review the restrictions every 180 days to determine whether they should continue, be modified, or be lifted. So, while the rules in place right now are serious, they are not necessarily fixed forever. Immigration policy in the United States often changes depending on global events, diplomatic relationships, and security assessments. That is why staying informed over time is so important. What is true today may evolve months from now, and new announcements could either tighten or relax the current restrictions. But one thing remains constant, and it is worth repeating again. None of these legal changes remove the fundamental rights of lawful permanent residents. There is also an important shift in this new policy that affects families trying to reunite through immigration. Previous travel bans included special exemptions for immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, such as spouses, parents, and unmarried children under 21. The December 2025 proclamation removed many of those automatic exemptions. That means that even close family members of American citizens can be subject to the new visa restrictions if they are from one of the affected countries and are outside the United States without a valid visa. This change has created real hardship for many families who are in the middle of the immigration process. It is one of the toughest aspects of the new rules, and a major reason why so many people are worried. However, and this is crucial to remember, this stricter approach still applies only to people seeking to enter the United States for the first time or to obtain new visas. It does not cancel the status of people who are already here legally. A spouse of a U.S. citizen who already holds a green card remains fully protected. A parent who already became a lawful permanent resident is still allowed to travel and return. The policy focuses on future admissions, not on taking away existing residents. Understanding that difference helps separate real concerns from unnecessary fear. Families waiting for visas may face longer delays and new challenges, but current green card holders continue to have the same rights they had before January 1st, 2026. Now let's finally clear up the biggest misunderstanding of all, the so-called 90-day ban. Over the past weeks, this phrase has spread everywhere, making people believe that travel for immigrants or green card holders was frozen for 3 months. That is simply not true. The 90-day timeline mentioned in government memos has nothing to do with stopping people from traveling. Instead, it refers to an internal review process inside USCIS. The agency announced that within 90 days, it would create a prioritized list of certain pending applications from restricted countries for additional security screening. In other words, USCIS gave itself 90 days to organize and review cases more carefully. That is an administrative deadline for government offices, not a deadline placed on immigrants. It does not mean green card holders cannot fly. It does not mean people will be turned away at airports for 90 days. And it does not create a temporary freeze on lawful permanent residents. Unfortunately, when this memo was released, many people mixed it together with the travel proclamation and assumed they were the same thing. They are not. One policy deals with visa issuance and entry for new applicants. The other deals with how USCIS processes certain files already in the system. Understanding that distinction removes almost all of the fear around the so-called 90-day rule. If you already have a green card, that timeline has absolutely no effect on you. If you are waiting for an application decision, it may mean longer processing times, but it does not take away your rights or cancel your case. At this point, it's important to talk directly about your rights as a lawful permanent resident, because knowing those rights can protect you from pressure, confusion, or misinformation. A green card gives you the legal right to live and work permanently in the United States. It also gives you the right to leave the country temporarily and return. That right cannot be removed just because a new policy is announced. When you arrive at a U.S. airport or border crossing, you have the right to be admitted back into the country as long as you have maintained your permanent residence. Border officers may ask questions about your travel, your job, or how long you were abroad, but they cannot simply cancel your status on the spot. If an officer ever suggests that you have abandoned your residence or asks you to sign papers giving up your green card, you have the right to refuse and to request to speak with an attorney. You also have the right to a hearing before an immigration judge before any final decision is made about your status. These protections exist regardless of the new travel restrictions. Too many people feel intimidated at ports of entry and agree to things they do not fully understand. Knowing that you have legal rights and due process is essential. The proclamation may change rules for visas and new entries, but it does not erase the constitutional protections that lawful permanent residents already have under U.S. law. Looking ahead, it's important to understand that U.S. immigration policy is going through a period of rapid change, and what we see today may not be the final version of these rules. The current administration has made it clear that it intends to take a tougher approach to immigration enforcement, visa screening, and border security. We have already seen expanded travel restrictions, longer processing times for certain applications, new biometric requirements, and proposals for additional policy changes. All of this creates uncertainty, especially for immigrants and their families who are trying to plan their futures. But uncertainty does not mean chaos. The immigration system still operates according to laws, procedures, and rights that cannot simply disappear overnight. For anyone navigating the system right now, the smartest strategy is to stay informed through official sources, keep all your documents up to date, respond quickly to any government notices, and avoid making decisions based on rumors. If your situation is complicated or you are directly affected by the processing pause or visa restrictions, seeking advice from a qualified immigration attorney can make a huge difference. Policies may shift, but careful preparation and accurate information will always put you in the strongest possible position. Let me bring everything together now and summarize the facts in the clearest possible way. There is no travel ban for green card holders. If you are a lawful permanent resident, you can continue to travel outside the United States and return just as you could before January 1st, 2026. The new restrictions mainly affect people who are trying to obtain new visas from 39 specific countries. Existing valid visas were not canceled, and people who already had them can still use them. There is a processing pause for certain pending applications from 19 countries, but that pause does not cancel cases and does not apply to people who already have green cards. The 90-day timeline you may have heard about refers only to internal government review procedures, not to any freeze on travel. And the new biometric screening rules are security measures that apply broadly to non-citizens, not proof of any special restriction on permanent residence. When you put all these pieces together, the picture becomes much clearer and much less frightening than many online posts have made it seem. The policies are real, but they are also specific and limited in scope. For millions of green card holders living in the United States, everyday life and travel continue as normal. So, what practical steps should you take right now, based on all of this information? If you are a green card holder, start by checking the basics. Look at the expiration date on your card and make sure it is still valid. If it will expire within the next 6 months, begin the renewal process immediately so you don't face problems while traveling. Make sure USCIS has your current address on file because permanent residents are legally required to update their address within 10 days of moving. When planning international travel, carry not only your green card, but also documents that show your ongoing ties to the United States, such as recent tax returns, proof of employment, or evidence of family connections. These are simple precautions that can prevent unnecessary delays at the border. If you are someone with a pending immigration application, keep close track of your case status online and respond quickly to any letters or requests from USCIS. Delays can be frustrating, but staying organized and proactive will help protect your application. And if you are outside the United States trying to obtain a new visa from a restricted country, take the time to research whether any exemptions or waivers might apply to you before making travel plans. Acting on accurate information is the best way to avoid costly mistakes. If you ever find yourself at a port of entry facing tough questions or pressure from an officer, remember to stay calm and know your rights.